Diffuse unpatterned alopecia, or DUPA for short, is a subtype of the more commonly understood condition androgenetic alopecia. Unlike its better-known counterparts, which often shows distinct patterns of baldness, DUPA is characterized by a widespread thinning of hair across the scalp without a specific pattern. To fully appreciate the genetic and biochemical relationship between DUPA and conventional androgenetic alopecia, it is essential to dissect the multifaceted components of these conditions. So, this might be a long video, but hopefully you guys can get through it, and hopefully I present it well. Well, let's get started. DUPA, as the name suggests, is a form of alopecia where the hair loss is diffused and unpatterned. As Chin H. Ho et al. 2022 state in Androgenetic Alopecia, in the Stats Pearl Prognosis E publication, androgenetic alopecia presents more predictably, with males often experiencing thinning at the vertex and frontotemporal regions, and females showing diffuse hair loss across the crown, with a broader center parting. DUPA is less predictable in its manifestation. There's a useful publication in the Journal of Cutaneous and Aesthetic Surgery written by Murnal Gupta and Venkataram Mysore that talks about the various types of androgenetic alopecia patterns as well as different progression scales. And this paper is titled, quote, Classifications of Pattern Hair Loss, a Review, unquote. Right away, you can see that there are some common realities with these scales, and that is that it typically starts with the front of the hairline as well as the crown and mid-scalps, and these areas progressively expand and get worse over time. But that's just with male pattern baldness for the most part. Female pattern hair loss, if we are going with the Chin H. Ho et al. Description, fits well with that sort of diffuse unpatterned alopecia. Now, don't get distracted by the name here. You can be a male and experience what is termed as female pattern hair loss or variants that are similar to it. It's just that this type of diffuse hair loss is more common with women than men. But again, female pattern hair loss is also predictable. So DUPA wouldn't really fit into that sort of terminology. While some balding patterns like the receding hairline or crown thinning, again, are more common, DUPA and even retrograde alopecia, which affects the sides of the scalp, are rarer. And these variations have been attributed to genetic diversity that manifests differently amongst people. Now, this genetic diversity is in reference to the sensitivity of the hair follicles to DHT and how it can vary in different regions of the scalp. So it could be the case that people with diffuse unpatterned alopecia just so happen to have an overall, across the entire scalp, genetic sensitivity, and it's just being expressed as a diffuse unpatterned pattern, if that makes sense. And again, we can refer to that Gupta and Mysore publication where we can see all the various scales that have been made over time that show the rates and the kinds of progression of hair loss that people can have, at least in reference to androgenetic alopecia. Now, when it comes to DUPA, some people online claim that it's due to prolactin levels. Now, I couldn't find any particular basis for this personally, but if anyone in the comments cares to offer some insights, you're welcome to do so. Because overall, prolactin in regards to androgenetic alopecia, there isn't that much solid literature that exists with it, like it does with DHT in regards to androgenetic alopecia. In the study titled, quote, Human scalp hair follicles are both a target and a source of prolactin, which serves as an autocrine and or paracrine promoter of apoptosis-driven hair follicle regression, unquote. Sorry, I had to say the whole title, so, you guys can go find it. That's such a long title. They need to shorten these titles. Like, I've seen scientific studies with, paragraph-long titles. But anyway, this study is by Kirsten Feuchtsker et al., and the researchers delve into the intriguing role of the hormone prolactin on hair growth and its regression. Prolactin is predominantly known for its roles in lactation and reproduction, but it also impacts other systems like immunity, angiogenesis, which is the creation of new blood vessels, and also hair growth. Their study revealed that both human skin and scalp hair follicles produce and respond to prolactin. Notably, during the hair follicle's transition from its growth phase to the regression phase, there's a noticeable increase in prolactin production. When hair follicles were exposed to high prolactin doses in a controlled lab setting, hair growth was hindered, leading to an early onset of the regression phase. So pretty much the shedding phase telogen occurred earlier. In the research, human scalp tissue was subjected to an extremely high dose of prolactin, about 400 nanograms per milliliter, in an organ culture setting. For reference, the typical prolactin levels are less than 20 nanograms per milliliter in men and less than 25 nanograms per milliliter in non-pregnant women, and range from about 80 to 400 nanograms per milliliter in pregnant women. This significant exposure to prolactin led to marked changes in hair growth dynamics, such that the hair actually shrunk. The hair shafts showed a reduced elongation, and a larger number of hairs entered the catagen phase ahead of time. During this phase, the hair detaches from its nutrient supply and stops growing. The study also identified an uptick in apoptosis, and this is the natural cell death process, specifically in the hair bulb keratinocytes, which are protective skin cells. This phenomenon can be a precursor to hair loss. And this is occurring in vitro, not in vivo, so it's happening inside of a petri dish outside of the human body. But still, its mechanism of action is quite significant, especially since elevated prolactin levels in humans are linked to specific patterns of hair loss. Thus, prolactin's inhibitory effect on hair growth might be a key factor behind hair loss in individuals with hyperprolactinemia, a condition where the body produces too much prolactin. In essence, while prolactin plays a pivotal role in several physiological functions, it could also be responsible for hair follicle regression. This discovery could potentially set the stage for new therapeutic avenues in treating hair-related disorders. And I will touch on this just quickly at the end of this video, but we have HMI-115, which is currently being developed by Hope Medicine. But I'll touch on that towards the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Now, women tend to have hair loss-related issues that are correlated with higher prolactin levels, and for that reason, the diffuse pattern seen in female pattern hair loss is often exhibited and related to, by some people, to the diffuse unpatterned alopecia. We have a literature review titled, quote, Hair Loss and Hyperprolactinemia, unquote, by Gerhard Lutz. Lutz explores the relationship between elevated prolactin levels and diffuse hair loss in women. Within this review, several key points come to light. The review acknowledges the scarcity of literature in the past 30 years on this topic, despite the ongoing discussion regarding a potential causative link between prolactin and hair loss. Lutz distinguishes between two main types of hair loss in women: androgenetic alopecia, which is linked to genetic inheritance of hormonal imbalances and just, the whole typical sensitivity to DHT, and also diffuse hair loss, which presents a more complex clinical challenge due to its diverse potential causes, including dermatological and internal diseases, endocrine disorders, nutrient deficiencies, medication side effects, and also cosmetic procedures. Regarding prolactin levels, the review presents data showing a wide range of values in women with diffuse hair loss. While some patients exhibited significantly elevated prolactin levels, others showed only moderate or slightly increased levels. The review also notes that certain patients received medications to reduce their prolactin levels. Additionally, the review emphasizes the significance of assessing thyroid function and signs of androgenization in these patients. Lutz reports that most individuals had normal thyroid functions and lacked clinical evidence of androgenization, suggesting that androgenetic hormonal abnormalities may occur only in more severe endocrine disorders. Finally, the review underscores the importance of evaluating clinical relevance of elevated prolactin levels in female patients with hair loss, mentioning cases where patients had varying prolactin levels and possibilities of prolactinoma. which essentially is a benign tumor in the pituitary gland that induces the excess production of prolactin and other hormones. So in the case of female hair loss, prolactin levels aren't always the issue here, but they could be a contributing factor. But at the end of the day, this kind of makes sense. It could just be androgenetic alopecia, because androgenetic alopecia is the most common form of hair loss in both men and women. So in reality, the likelihood that diffuse unpatterned alopecia is due to prolactin levels is relatively low, especially for men. But again, get blood work because that is important. Because let's assume you have high prolactin levels as a guy. It would probably be worth addressing that, the implications could be something that's not serious. So you don't want to find out that you have a tumor on your pituitary gland and it just got worse because you never addressed it, when in reality you could have got blood work done and then you would have caught the tumor in a benign state in your pituitary gland and that could have been removed. So if you are losing your hair as a dude or as a non-pregnant woman and then you go and get blood work done and you realize your prolactin levels are through the roof, right? Then that's a first step to check not just on your hair follicles, right? But actually get a scan and look at what's going on in your head at your pituitary gland so we can rule out something like cancer or a tumor, right? That's actually leading to your demise. So check that first, get blood work done. That's always the first step. I encourage that regardless if you have androgenetic alopecia or not, get blood work done. But I see a lot of people online who are just attributing their hair loss with no blood work, right, to their prolactin levels. Now, can you feel your prolactin levels being too high, guys? How the hell can you tell without getting blood work? Again, get the fucking blood work and stop saying, my prolactin levels are high. You don't know for sure, so stop making that assumption. So, and this tends to be from people who are anti-finasteride, from what I've seen. But yeah, get that shit checked. So is there a basis of DUPA being related to high prolactin levels? I find it possible, but I don't see it being the primary cause based on high prolactin levels. There could be some sort of complex relation between prolactin and DHT such that in tissues, DHT may upregulate the expression of prolactin. Thus, this would become a downstream effect of DHT where suddenly in the tissues, prolactin levels are higher than in serum. And in this case, again, I'm largely spitballing here, so don't kill me if in 10 years you find out that it's contrary. Because we're working with sparse research when it comes to hair loss and prolactin. Prolactin damage could be a downstream effect of DHT's interaction with the androgen receptor, and thus prolactin being a co-regulator contributing to male pattern baldness. But again, in any case, DHT is the catalyst that starts all of this shit to begin with. Well, I guess 5-alpha reductase, if we're going to be, nitpicky, 5-alpha reductase turning testosterone into DHT. Or maybe also your parents for, having shit genetics that also causes you to go bald. Maybe you should have never been born to begin with. Nah, I'm joking. Just a little bit of dry humor there. Are you still listening? Did that catch you off guard? Did it? Anyway, let's keep going. So DHT's potential upregulation of prolactin. Let's look at this paper titled, quote, Androgen Regulation of Prolactin Receptor Gene Expression in MCF-7 and MDA-MB-453 Human Breast Cancer Cells, unquote, by C.J. Ormandy et al. Although not related in condition, when it comes to human breast cancer cells, DHT, among other compounds, increased the prolactin binding activity approximately twofold in MCF-7 breast cancer cells after 24 hours. The study uses two compounds, RU38486 and RU23908. So shout out to the boys from Rousseau-Rouclaf, that, the guys that made RU58841. I'm saying the guys, but the pharmaceutical company that made it. And they use these compounds to understand the pathways through which DHT and other compounds like ORG-2058 act on the breast cancer cells. RU-38486 is an anti-progesterone, and it did not affect the induction of prolactin by DHT. In contrast, RU-23908 is an anti-androgen, and it inhibited DHT's effects on prolactin expression. This data suggests that DHT is acting via the androgen receptor to induce prolactin expression in the MCF-7 cells. So it looks like DHT potentially, it's conceivable that it can interact with the androgen receptor and upregulate prolactin, but this is a very specific case when it comes to breast cancer cells, right? Like, and this is in vitro, by the way. So let's not get too carried away. But what my point is, it's that we could, with more research, find that DHT upregulates prolactin. But again, this is just another example of it being a downstream effect, right? The rise in prolactin or the expression of prolactin that leads to apoptosis is a downstream effect of DHT. So DHT is the catalyst for all these bad things to happen. So, like I said earlier in the video, I mentioned HMI-115. So HMI-115 is being developed by Hope Medicine, and it's currently in clinical trials for androgenetic alopecia and endometriosis. Now, HMI-115 is a monoclonal antibody that targets the prolactin receptor. Recently, HMI-115 entered Phase 2 clinical studies for androgenetic alopecia, as it just concluded Phase 1 studies. So HMI-115 could serve as a potential future treatment that deals with the downstream effects of DHT and gene expression of hair loss. So yeah, a bit of a long video. I touched on different topics here and there, but I think at the end of the day, we have a basis in which DHT is causing for the hair follicles to go through a state of miniaturization. We know that to be true, right? There's mountains and mountains of clinical evidence that proves this. And we know that there are different forms of androgenetic alopecia, as we can see with the Mysore and Gupta paper, right? We have different scales, and just think about it. You can see a dude on the train with a Norwood 1 hairline, and then he stands up, turns around, and his whole crown is completely gone, right? These are different sensitivity zones on the scalp based on the individual's genetics. So it's just another form of gene expression based on how sensitive your hair follicles are. And then finally, in regards to prolactin, it's conceivable that prolactin is just another downstream effect from DHT's interaction with the androgen receptor, which causes a shit ton of things to happen that damages your hair follicles. So it may be the case where you don't have to address DHT, right? It could be the case that you address the third thing that happens in the downstream effect. It could be high prolactin levels. It could be just something else, right? It could be something that you addressed after DHT that prevents the hair follicles from miniaturizing. So, yeah, that's pretty much the basis of this video. So, in my opinion, DUPA, diffuse unpatterned alopecia, is just another form of androgenetic alopecia, and at the end of the day, the primary cause is the hair follicles' sensitivity to DHT, and an individual with DUPA just happens to have their entire scalp being severely sensitive to dihydrotestosterone or DHT. So yeah guys, thanks for watching, and this video is going to be a special video for a particular subscriber who's been asking for this video for, I want to say a couple months now. So shout out to Collins X62. Hopefully I got the name right. I'm not looking at the name directly right now, I'm just saying it from memory. But you've been really persistent for wanting this video, so here it is, it's made, and hopefully you and others like my insight. So if you got to the end of this video, comment in the comments section below, green tea. Yes, green tea, the actual tea that you drink. I don't know if it's green or not. You know, I've bought green tea before and it just came out being brown. Maybe it's like a darker shade of green or whatever. But fall is almost here, and yeah, some people like drinking green tea in the fall too. So comment green tea in the comment section below if you got to the end of this video. And yeah, thanks for the support I've been getting recently. It's amazing to see this channel blow up. And if you guys want to contact me, any sort of one-on-one consultation or anything like that, all my links are in the description along with my social media. So yeah, see you on the next video, guys, and have a nice day. Peace out.